So the statements that have been made by the bishop, to the extent that if it is a question of dialoguing, it's really unnecessary repetition. We have had enough of those dialoguing. In fact, if we were to implement what is already contained in the recommendations that we have had since the 2007 clashes and before, including the NADCO Report, many of the things that we are going through now will not have happened. But on top of that, it is also necessary it is important to say that this regime, we can see the excesses of this regime. And the excesses of the regime is not in terms of just stealing, but in terms of the amount of violence that they are occasioning on Kenyans and especially on the young people. And very unchecked utterances by people who have responsibilities in this country. Calling on people to be shot if you approach a police station, calling on people to be shot on the leg. I think it is important to remind them that young men like Alex actually died because he was shot on the leg. The young girl we were battling yesterday at Kiabu, the person who fired the bullet, and instead of the leg, it got the head. So that's a very careless statement coming from a person who occupies the office in the Statehouse. We don't want violence. We are committed to getting this regime home. And we know we have had some of them saying that they are going to rig elections. Very careless statements that can literally get us into anarchy. And if those leaders are not held to accountable, it just means that we really must work harder and get them home. But it's important also to let them know that as Kenyans, we are not intimidated, or we are not going to lose hope by them saying we will leave. Two things that are important. Unlike ever before, elections will be announced at the polling station, and the returning officer is the officer at that polling station. Bombers tutakuwa tumekuja sisi wote kutoka Kenya yote kuja, because we will have declared our president by 9 o'clock in the night. Bombers tutakuwa tukienda sisi wote, mtu atijaribu kutagaza William Ruto kama rais 2027 kama tutafika huko. We've received very many complaints from the young people who have been issued with ID cards, but ID cards that you cannot even register as with M-Pesa. So we fear that these are fake documents. Perhaps documents that are fake to the extent that they will affect the outcome of the elections. Again, I can give you two instances. One is last month at Oljolorok, the DCC or the ACC was in charge of Oljolorok division, lost IDs of almost 1,000, and they were just lost from the office. He never reported. There was no burglary, there was no breaking into the office, lakini zilipotea. Na yeye mwenyewe alitamka wakiwa na wakubwa wengine huko Ojoro. The other thing is this, when they went to ban the Conclave, unaona wale walikuwa na choma, they banned 1,900 IDs. So there are a lot of shenanigans going on with the ID cards within Mount Kenya region. But we want to tell William and his team, hata yeye mwenyewe akiwa yeye ndio atakuwa returning officer, tutapeleka yeye nyumbani. The determination of Kenyans to get them home is beyond the theft that they are trying to scheme. That we have IBC in place, we as political parties and leaders in various areas, we will follow it and we will make it an issue. If it means going to court, we will go to court. IDs must be given properly, and they must be given to all the deserving young people. To tell a person who has not received an ID ati kwa sababu kitambulisho yako ilichomekea kwa ofisi ya DC au uende ukachukue abstract form, this is just a rogue regime. And I think also on top of that, it's important to make sure that to condemn the police brutality that is there. They have succeeded in intimidating the Gen Z. You don't expect them to make lives any easier. They will push us very hard in terms of the cost of living, and the fact that they pushed the cost of petrol by 7 shillings a litre is just an indicator. Any reduction, any reducing or bringing down on the amount of pressure that this government or the regime has been subjected to will only result in higher cost of living and more misery to Kenyans.
Thank you.
The situation in our country demands implementation of the recommendations of the various commissions which we have in this country. A call for intergenerational dialogue may not lead us to anywhere because we have sufficient body of evidence of what needs to be done. It is up to the President and the Cabinet to be bold to take the steps which will enable us to be successful. Kenyans are suffering over things which can be worked on. It's a case of listening and it's a case of acting. We do not need to delay with the further talks in any way. Thank you.